What is up, YouTube Nation? Bevi Hill Army, Vinyl Gang. Welcome to week 3 of Weekly Vinyl Pickups, where we discuss, I show you what I've picked up in this last week, motherfucker. Let's get started. Starting off strong with one of the best albums from 1978. I was going to say 86 and I was going to be way wrong. Not one of the best albums from 1978. Devo, Are We Not Men? This shit, I don't even feel like it's underrated. I feel like it's accurately rated. If anything, it may be a little underrated just because of how hard this shit slaps. Uncontrollable Urge. You might know that song from Wolf of Wall Street, the scene where they're going all crazy in the studio. Now, this thing might sound weird, might even sound trash on your first listen if you're not used to the punky shit and the weird vibes. Devo does not fuck around. They are weird and there is nothing like these guys. So if you're not ready for it, you might not fuck with it. But this is, in my opinion, one of the greatest albums from 78. And I think it's honestly good front to back. There's a few duds, maybe 1, 2, 3 at most. But tracks like Mongoloid, Gut Feeling, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, which is a Rolling Stones cover, but they blow Keith Richards and Homo Mick Jagger out of the water. If you're listening to that version, I don't know what the fuck you're doing with your life. Get on Devo if you like that song. And if you're not already listening to it, come on now. It's the better version. Next. Ooh, we've got a great album that on Spotify says it's from 1999, but this album's actually from 1976, if I'm remembering correctly. This is Bobby Humphrey, Blacks and Blues. This is like a blues soul record. Bobby Humphrey is a flute player, and one of her first sets ever, I think actually her first set when she arrived to New York, was with Duke Ellington. So she's not just anybody, even though you might not know her name. And this record is just so good. Track 1, Chicago Dam, starts out with wind because Chicago's a windy city, I'm sure you know. And it is phenomenal. It goes into Harlem River Drive, which is one of my favorites. And track 4, side 2's first song, Blacks and Blues, is a banger. This album is mad underrated. I don't feel like I've heard anyone talk about it. I bought it because I saw it. I think I saw it on like my Instagram magnifying glass page. And then I went into the store and it was there in the shrink. I was like, okay, gotta get it. Because after I saw it on Instagram, I was like, this shit's probably cool based off the cover. And it was. I loved Chicago Dam on first listen. Loved it. Listened to it like 4 times that day on a bike ride down to the record store. And when I saw this sitting on the wall, I was tripping out. So I had to buy it. Life just kind of does stuff like that to you sometimes, man. Kind of sets you up for success. Ooh, okay. Now these next couple of records, I believe it's the next 4, 5 records, all have the same story coming from the same place. If you are a Philadelphia resident, you have got to go to Borderline Records on 5th and Girard. Oh my God. That is the most uncovered gem in Philadelphia when it comes to record collecting. I got all of these records for $15. And that might still seem like a lot if you're an old head and you don't know how much vinyl is now. It's used vinyl. There are little clicks and pops here and there. No skips. But definitely, in my opinion, well worth $15. All of these records you could find easily for $30 to $35. And I'm just now realizing I forgot one. Number 1, Gay Triangle. Dark Side of the Moon, the Homo Triangle. I really feel no need to say anything about this album other than that it was $15, which is a nice price in my opinion. It is also an older pressing, and the record is mad clean. It sounds fantastic. And I'm sure, like, Dark Side's common. It's not the rarest record by any means, but it still can go for like 20, 30 easily. So 15, I was cool with. I was holding off buying Dark Side. The reason I didn't have it yet, because obviously I know the record. I love the record. It's probably not my favorite Pink Floyd record, but I do love it. The only reason I didn't get it is because everywhere I go that I see Dark Side, I'm just not fucking with the price enough. I'm like, we'll get them next time. And this was that time. Shout out Borderline Records. Next, Uncle Meat by Frank Zappa. This was the only record that was actually $20 and not $15, but it is a 2LP. This is, some people say that this is one of Frank's masterpieces. In my opinion, nah. It's a little unlistenable, huh? So there's certain sides on here. I think it might be side 2. I remember listening to one side all the way through and not liking a single track, just being like, bro, what the fuck is going on? Track 1 is dope. Sleeping in a Jar, you might know that song from Meat Grinder by MF Doom. That's one of MF Doom's most popular songs, so fans of that might remember the beginning where he goes, sleeping in a jar. That's just a Frank Zappa sample. Shout out Madlib, GOAT producer, record digger, Frank Zappa fan. My favorite track off this is easily Ian Underwood Whips It Out. It's a live track, and he's not whipping his dick out. He's whipping out a saxophone and just blowing that shit to pieces. He's blowing his brains out on that saxophone. Honestly, not Zappa's best. I understand why people call it a masterpiece. It's because of the year it came out. This came out in 1967, and I feel like some songs might have even been recorded in 1966. This is some of, not the first, but some of the first recorded jazz fusion. So people really love Zappa for that. People love this album for that. I love jazz fusion. That's probably my favorite genre. For people who aren't nerds, it's just jazz fused with rock. I'm a jazz head and I love rock. I'm a hip hop head too. That's what I grew up on, but jazz and rock, as I'm getting into record collecting, are by far the shit that I'm buying the most. And wow, Ian Underwood Whips It Out shows you what they could have done throughout this whole record. But the thing kind of falls flat. Zappa's too busy fucking around trying to make something that's like technologically impressive rather than something that sounds good that you would put on. So I think that he perfected this way later throughout his career. If you want to hear some good Zappa jazz fusion, just listen to Graham Wazoo. Just throw Graham Wazoo on. Yeah. Some tracks worth a listen. Whole thing, for the biggest Zappa fans only. Now, speaking of Graham Wazoo, we got that bitch right here. $15, Graham Wazoo. Pretty much everything I just said is how I feel about this one. Everything that I felt like that record was missing, this record has. It's older. The track list is way more condensed. It's not a double LP. It honestly isn't all that similar to Uncle Meat, other than I feel like this is Zappa's probably, honestly, one of, like, top 3 most accessible records, and probably one of his best jazz fusion statements that he's made. For Calvin is fantastic. The Graham Wazoo, the title track, is a ballad. It's fucking great the whole way through. This is one of those albums that I feel like Zappa is a little hard to get into. He has an intimidating discography, kind of similar to Miles Davis. But I feel like even the non-Zappa fan could fuck with this one a little bit. Kind of like Apostrophe, but for different reasons. It's a great one, and I picked it up in the same haul. Shout out Borderline Records for the second time. Next, because I forgot, I was going to put this one right after the other Pink Floyd one, but I forgot. Obscured by Clouds. This is the record that came out before Dark Side of the Moon. It's actually, I think it's a movie soundtrack. It's weird. It's alright. It's probably one of the better non-Big Four Pink Floyd albums. The ones that they dropped after the Big Four are probably all, I wouldn't say all, but majority better than this one. But out of all of the pre-Dark Side stuff, this one's okay. The song, I believe, Childhood's End is fantastic, actually. It's one of my favorite Pink Floyd songs. But it's a by far highlight, and there's really nothing that sounds like it on this album other than that. And honestly, if you listen to this, you wouldn't expect Pink Floyd to be about to drop the masterpiece that is Dark Side of the Moon. It's honestly pretty mediocre, if you were to ask me. But I'm a Pink Floyd guy, so it's still worth to have in my collection. Next, Houses of the Holy. Got this one for $15 too. Sounds great. It's Houses of the Holy. Some people say that this is Led Zeppelin's best. I think that those people are dick eaters. It's definitely not Led Zeppelin's best, bro. You're trying way too hard to be experimental. You can like the ass on the cover and not lie to yourself, bro. It's cool. It's weird. It doesn't look like it would be a Led Zeppelin album based off the cover. It's the first Led Zeppelin album that's not Led Zeppelin or self-titled. And they went for some cool stuff on here. There's a reggae track with Dire Maker. No Quarter is top 5 Led Zeppelin songs, in my opinion. That's honestly really the song that got me not into Led Zeppelin. That would be Since I've Been Loving You. Led Zeppelin 3 is probably my favorite album. But this one it's cool, you know? Rain Song is fantastic. The song remains the same, I believe, is track 1. I might be fucking that up. It's good. It's definitely great. It's totally worth a listen if you haven't listened to it. But it's not Led Zeppelin's best. People are just trying way too hard to be experimental. And have a hot take. No one wants to say that Led Zeppelin 1 or 2 or 4 is their best. So they gotta pull out this one out of their ass. Come on now. It's not their best. Cream Disraeli Gears. I was so happy to see this for $15 because I am not really a Cream fan. I definitely wasn't before this. I actually kind of feel some type of way about Eric Clapton, man. I don't fuck with him. He was mean to my homie Jimi Hendrix, so I can't fuck with him based off that. Eric Clapton always kind of seemed a little snobalicious and pretentious. And I'm not fucking with that, man. Let your music speak for itself. No one needs to be going on and saying that they're the best anything ever. It never makes you look good. And look back at the clips of Ringo saying that he's the best rock and roll drummer in history. We know that that man is capping. Okay? This was $15. I was like, okay, I see this album everywhere. I really haven't heard it at all other than Sunshine of Your Love. I do adore that song before I heard it. Or before I bought this, I adored that song. So I was like, it's worth it just for that alone. For $15, I'll give it a full listen. And wow, I did not expect to like this as much as I did. It is fantastic. Strange Brew is so good. It's really a good listen all the way through. And if you haven't listened to it, it's absolutely worth a shot. I haven't heard any of Cream's other records. I don't know much about Cream. I'm not going to pretend like I'm a real big fan. I can't speak on it personally. But even for someone who's not a Cream fan, who doesn't fucks with Eric Clapton, this thing, oh my God, it's worth a listen. Worth a listen. It's fantastic. It's way more than worth a listen. Just great, classic like rock and roll, especially with Sunshine of Your Love. You've heard that song before. Ooh, it's just classic after classic. Queen, A Night at the Opera. Come on now. Who doesn't need Bohemian Rhapsody for $15 in their collection? So, I bought this shortly after figuring out, don't come at me in the comments, I did not know that Freddie Mercury was Queen. I said it. Stop yelling at me, okay? I didn't know. I knew who Freddie Mercury was, and I knew who Queen was. But I had no clue that Freddie Mercury was the lead man of Queen, just because I personally never even like cared to give it a listen. Honestly, when I was a kid, all I was listening to was hip hop. So, I would listen to a little rock here and there, some stuff that I grew up with. I wouldn't say all that I was listening to was hip hop. My favorite band ever since I was a kid has always been the Gorillaz. But just because I was personally an artist. So to see, also Demon Days dropped the year I was born. So to see a band come through with something so revolutionary like they did, an illustration band, it was just like, it was my whole life when I was a kid, you know? This record, honestly, isn't all consistent. It's not great front to back, if you were to ask me. It's, so it's a great album, Bohemian Rhapsody. Like, although it's like cliche to say, it's like literally the most listened to album of like the decade or something. But I listen to that song a lot still. Like, that shit does not get old. That's one of my most listened to songs. But I feel like some of these tracks fall flat, honestly. It's not as consistent as I wish it was, but Bohemian Rhapsody, oh my god. Like, nothing needs to be said about that shit. Nothing. And it's kind of interesting how the song came about. I'm pretty sure it was that Queen either dropped their label or their label at the time wasn't messing with them, or maybe even that they were having trouble getting picked up by a label. And because they wanted to make opera, like, opera was just their thing. I'm not into opera or anything, but you gotta respect it. Queen came through with some different ass music. Nothing like Bohemian Rhapsody sounded like Bohemian Rhapsody at the time that this came out. So, not only did they make one of the best songs ever with a rock opera song that people said, oh, that shit would never work, that won't work out, having trouble getting picked up by a label such as that. They made the most popular song of all time. And it's like a fuck you to them, because it's a fucking opera song. So it's just crazy. Gotta respect them for that. Absolutely worth $15. If this isn't worth $15, I don't know what is. That's the last of the Borderline Records haul. I'm lying. Wishbone Ash. So, I don't know much of anything about Wishbone Ash. I didn't know anything about it before I went into the store and bought this. But I was in, Borderline Records. Let me just plug it for the 10th time. I was in Borderline Records for like 3 hours, so I ended up having a conversation about this. And I found it super interesting why this band came about. So Wishbone Ash, you'll hear all first listen, whoa, what the fuck's happening? If you haven't heard before, it can sound really disorienting at first, at least for me personally. But like after a minute of hearing it, I was like, oh my god, this is disgusting. Like, there's nothing wrong with this shit at all. It's twin electric, so it's two electric guitars playing at the same time. And the reason that is because when recruiting an electric guitar member for their band, they struggled between two picks. And rather than like flipping a coin and picking one of the guitarists, they, at that very moment, decided to completely change what their band was going to be and just go, fuck it, let's just do this, let's see how this works. And they picked up both guys, and both guys joined Wishbone Ash, and it's a twin electric band. So the first song, the third song, I'm really blanking on the names right now, so I don't want to sound like an idiot. Hold on. Blind Eye, oh my god, yeah, Blind Eye and Errors of My Way. So good. I never heard Twin Electric before this. It definitely has been done before them, but this was still, even though it's been done before them, a very early recording of some Twin Electric guitar. And if you're curious of what that would even sound like, as I was too, listen to this album. $10, worth it, in my opinion. That is all for the vinyl, but we do have 2 CDs coming in with Beck, Mellow Gold. It was just really cheap. I haven't even given this album a full listen. but I love Beck so much. So I thought that I would just get the CD and listen to it because I know enough. I know like some tracks to where I knew that I would just fuck with it. Or not know that I would fuck with it, but the songs that I like were worth the price for me. I'll pay like, it was $3, so I'll pay $3 for I'm a loser, baby, so why don't you kill me? That's a C. Come on now. Next up, I was just talking about them. Gorillaz. Song Machine Season 1. So, people call Song Machine Season 1 Gorillaz' best album since Plastic Beach. For a full cohesive piece, it sounds more like a compilation album. And I personally was a fan of the Now Now because I was listening to Gorillaz a lot at that time and actually went on that tour and saw Damon live. And that show was just so killer. And everyone, I feel like Damon was getting a lot of flack at that time for the Now Now. But I feel like that album holds up as a great summer tune. I listen to that album on bike rides still. And everyone was kind of shitting on Gorillaz at that time for making that album. But I feel like it's aging better. Cracker Island, I am not buying that shit. Sorry. But Song Machine is great. It really is great. It's got all the band members in the thing, man. It just pissed me off. I wanted to get the vinyl, but the deluxe vinyl with the deluxe, by the way, is only 6 more songs. I'm not saying only, like that's a low song amount, but when the original track list is 11 songs and the deluxe came out like the same week, you couldn't have just made that the same album? Like, whatever. Do what you want. But the deluxe vinyl is $80 for 6 more songs. You got me fucked up. So I got the CD for $10. Very happy with my purchase. It comes with a booklet with about 1 million pictures. I don't know if you can even see, but 1 million pictures of the boys and Noodle. I first heard Song Machine. I was actually listening to all the singles as they were dropping. I really got back into Gorillaz around this time because I kind of had a lull for a little bit, but I really started heavy listening to them again after this song dropped with Skepta and Tony Allen. That shit was like one of the best Gorillaz songs I've heard in a while. And Strange Times with Robert Smith is one of Gorillaz' best songs yet. Just wasn't willing to spend the $80 on the vinyl when I could get the $10 CD. Thank you for tuning in to this week's Vinyl Pickups. Hope you enjoy. Peace.